Okay. Hello. Hello. I hope you are well. I'll introduce myself. Lappy, streamers, and gamer since a long time. And I'm with Isak, with an old friend, an old gamer, and my translator for today. For the French community watching us, can you share your work on World of Warcraft?
Sure. So I'm one of two lead game designers on the team. I broadly cover content, so quests and levels, outdoor replayability. I do some work in social systems, user interface, and things like new player experience, Exiles Reach, etc. Those are some other interests of mine, making the game accessible, increasing social stickiness, and content.
And I'm lead quest designer, responsible for quests, story stuff going into the game. A lot of those outdoor systems and content that we're making. And in Shadowlands, worked on the Bastion Zone for the original release as well.
Okay.
A lot of the stuff there.
Okay. Isaac.
So for the first question, what will be the timeline of the content release when patch 9.1 hit? Will everything be available at once, or will there be a delay?
So yeah, we always, with any content release, and Chains of Domination is no different, we want people to be able to hop in and play a lot of it right away. So there'll be some day one story that happens, some really big exciting moments there following up on the cinematic that you saw. That will pretty quickly lead you to Korthia, the new space that the jailer is pulled in with his chains and anchored to the maw. And immediately right away, you'll be able to do a lot of the replayable activities on day one. So you'll be able to interface with visitors that are coming in and out from the different covenants. You'll be able to take the fight to the jailer directly in these large scale assaults that we're working on. Being able to work with the Maldraxi and, use an Acropolis against the jailer's positions, all that kind of stuff. But another thing that we saw that players have really responded positively to is being able to play out the rest of the story over a period of time. And so, what we're thinking right now is that will probably be a similar structure to what you saw in Shadowlands, where as you increase your renown, there will be renown levels. You'll you'll open up different chapters of the story, and you'll keep moving things along, uncovering what the jailer is up to, and learning some of the secrets of this new place along the way. So there'll be a lot to do right away, and then also continuing story throughout.
Okay, nice, thanks. Is it on purpose that you encourage players to play all type of content, for example, with PvP gear and others?
Generally, yes. What we try to do is there is like primary content, which is for everybody. This is your quest storylines, soul binds, outdoor replayable things like callings, dungeons, that sort of content for everybody. And the other content that is either more optional or less frequent. So we don't expect everybody to play PvP, but of course we want to encourage people to try it. And we think that people will find it fun if they do, even if it's casually or if it's seriously. Either way, it's the same with raids, right? Like you're not required to do LFR, but we try to make that a very lower barrier to entry. Pet battles, even small features, big features, we try to put them out there to tempt people to try them. But there's the core content that everyone's expected to play on any release or expansion, and then there is the optional content that we try to tempt people to play.
Okay. So now we will switch to the lore and this cinematic. Isaac.
Can you share the reason as to why Uther in the cinematic reached to his hurt or wound, maybe, when seeing Anduin?
So without going into too much detail, because we will learn more about more about Uther and spend some time with him in the Covenant campaign to come. But yeah, he did have a bit of a reaction to Anduin walking by. I'm glad you picked up on that. That's a good detail. So there I've seen a bunch of different reasons online as to what that is, right? But at the end of the day, we know that Uther's soul was touched in a very specific way when it was severed by Frostmourne all those years ago, right? And that reacting to the presence of what we soon learned to be was a dominated Anduin being, kind of controlled by the jailer. That certainly has some implications. And I would love to see, what the community thinks about that and the discussion revolving around that. but we will delve further into Uther's story. We'll delve into a lot of the different stories throughout the Covenant campaign, regardless of which Covenant you chose. Um, since Chains of Domination is in many ways about the Covenants coming together, we want everybody to do the majority of the campaign. So it is a shared story for the most part, where we're advancing against the jailer. We're uncovering this, uncovering his plan, obviously trying to stop it because we're heroes. But there are some specific moments along the way too. So if you are a Kyrian player and you're probably extra invested in what's going on with Uther, we have some extra things in there for you, to make sure that that choice is still very relevant. So I don't want to spoil what's going on with Uther, but good job picking up on that detail.
Okay, nice. And with this cinematic and what was done to the Archon, what will be the impact to Bastion?
I've seen a lot of this online, a lot of kind of speculation both ways, but I think one thing that we can clarify is the Archon's not dead. I've seen people think that she is dead. She is wounded. She was, she has been marred in a similar way to what we've seen with Uther by this very powerful domination magic. But more than anything, this is our call to action. Now that we've seen, okay, the Anduin via the jailer is after some sort of key. Key to what? What are the other components to this? Right?
Good question.
We're gonna figure that out and try to stop him from using it, and that's gonna really spur us onto the adventure of the campaign. So this moment in Bastion is obviously, this is the inciting action that really kicks off the story, and it is going to be a wild ride from there. But it's going to get the Kyrian involved. They're gonna learn a lot about addressing things that have come up in their story and coming together, and all the covenants are going to have to come together. And that, again, really hard to not spoil things by talking where it goes from there, but it really does kick things into motion.
Okay, and following up with the keys, I expect that you can't speak much about it, but how many are required for this plan? We know that 3 remains. Was there 5? Was there 4 more?
Yeah, that would be a spoiler, right? I can't. That's it.
Okay.
We will learn. We'll learn much more about it. We'll learn what he's trying to do and what he needs to do it, and try to stop him along the way. And that's going to lead us, eventually into the Sanctum of Domination raid, where we're going to see some of his most powerful lieutenants, some of the most damned souls to ever enter the Shadowlands. And so, among the ultimate battle against Sylvanas at the end there, but you'll also have some really interesting lore hits along the way and some characters to fight there. And interestingly, one being like the Terragru, right? So if you've been playing Torghast, and I'm sure maybe early on you had some runs that maybe didn't go so well. I know I did. This will be your chance to get some revenge on the Terragru and be able to play that out. And then there's some lore stuff as the raid kind of escalates through the domain. So we're gonna learn all about what the jailer's up to.
Okay, nice. We left the ring carver with one chain removed. Will we continue throwing him in the future, or will we leave him like that?
The Rune Carver story is definitely progressing in Chains of Domination.
Okay.
We're not really seeing any specific information under that. He is a major part of the story for sure. I don't think that's a spoiler. I think pretty much everyone suspects that's the case. So.
And finally, we talked about the Arbiter at the start of Shadowlands. I guess it's the same for the Rune Carver. We'll explore more in his story in 9.1.
I think one of the interesting things is when we get to Korthia was built as almost this kind of sister city to Oribos. It was built by the same beings, many millennia ago, right? Before we can even remember. And so one of the interesting things when we're there is there's lots of things that were hidden away, right? The Korthia was kind of hidden in the space between the realms of the Shadowlands so that people like the jailer wouldn't find it. So what were they hiding? What were, these same beings that tends to the Arbiter? What incredibly important things and powerful things were they trying to make sure nobody found? And so I think as we begin to uncover some of that stuff, we will learn a little bit more about, the nature of the Shadowlands and kind of how it works and how it was intended to work. And, obviously the Arbiter plays a role into that. So, without going too much more detail beyond that. I think we're going to learn some of those key things about where things might be going, especially if we fail to stop what the jailer's kind of trying to do.
Okay, thanks for this. With this BlizzCon, we had more information on the conduit system and Sanctum. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So it was announced a new type of conduit type in patch 9.1. What can you expect from it?
We're calling them like signature ability conduits and empowered conduit slots. It's actually still in design, which is why we didn't put a bunch of examples out there, but suffice to say existing conduit powers or some of the new ones might be able to be enhanced. To be clear, each soulbind has 3 additional layers of powers, including new slots. And I'm not sure at this point whether the empowered ones will be on previous ones or only in the new rows. And that's something that just has to continue to go through internal design. But that's the basics of the system. So yeah, new conduits, new slots, and a deeper set on each of your soulbinds.
Okay, nice. And are you happy with how the upgrade of the conduit work at the start of the Shadowlands with Venari?
Right. Yeah. Overall, we're happy with it. The tuning of every economy or every new economic related system is always an ongoing thing. And whatever we find in beta or internal testing, we always expect generally to have to tune it. Once a few million players get in there and start playing around with it, we're going to learn new things. So we always just have time set aside for that. And being that this is a living system, I assume we'll be tuning it. Well, we are tuning it in 9.05. I'm sure we'll have to end up doing some tuning between now and 9.1 and then after 9.1. So it's an ongoing thing. Overall, we're happy with it. We always feel like we could do better. We're pretty hard on ourselves too. It's not just pressure from the community. We want to be perfect. Perfect is somewhat impossible, right? But you always strive for that. And I don't think you get excellence if you're not trying for it, at least.
And for the Sanctum upgrade, will we see more of them in the future, or maybe new upgrade, new rank?
So for the Sanctum features, I think our immediate plan right now is that there are a lot of players that are still in the progress of unlocking, the higher tiers of some of those features. And one thing we didn't want to do is make those players feel more behind by, adding more things that they feel like they can't even begin to unlock yet. So our plan right now is to focus more of our efforts on the new space, on Korthia, on adding new things to do in the Maw, and in the process, deepening some of the existing Sanctum features, like Kevin was mentioning, right? New Soulbind rows, new conduits to unlock and upgrade along the way. But for some of the features, like adventures or your Path of Ascensions, that sort of thing, our current thoughts are that we want players to have an opportunity to catch up, finish out those systems, and be able to focus on new things and continue to enjoy those. So that's kind of where we are right now. And obviously, as we continue to evaluate feedback, we're still very much open to the idea of adding more to those over time. But right now, it feels like players are still working with those systems. And so, we think they're in a pretty good spot.
I feel like it's also a product of where the story is going as well, because the Covenant, the major problems that the jailer was behind, basically all of the major problems in the 4 zones. The major problems are coming to the point of being solved, and they're starting to see the bigger emergency of the jailer looks like he's trying to escape the Maw, and the whole structure of the universe has been set up to prevent him from doing that. But he's pulling off all sorts of things that he should not be able to do. 9.1 is a big step in the wrong direction, right? The jailer's got even bigger plans than you could imagine. But the Covenants are coming together now, and they're taking the fight to Venari. So not to Venari, sorry, they're actually working with Venari, to the Maw. A lot of the new Covenant content will take you to the Maw and to Korthia, the new zone, which has been pulled up against the Maw. So that's, I think, part of the story, the story of the zones themselves. There will be some new stuff, some new callings and world quests and other thematic elements in the other zones. But a lot of the new stuff is based in our new areas, because that's where the story is taking us. It's interesting. We're often driven by the needs of the story as much as the gameplay. And I think that's a perfectly good thing, right? That we can help figure out gameplay according to the direction of the story. And then it always feels thematically stronger that way anyway.
Okay, the legendary system is a huge part of Shadowlands. So let's talk about this.
Will the legendary upgrade work the same as now? So do we keep the Soul Ash, and will the professions work as the same as now, so with new item?
We will be adding new legendaries. As far as the soul ash thing, let me see. I have a note on this. Basically, my note was that it's still in discussion. So I'm sure we'll have like conduits and the soulbind things. As we come to decisions on that, we'll start floating them out in the community, and it will be an update along the way.
Okay, nice.
No, that's it for now.
Will we be able to change the statistic of a legendary, for example, as well, or without having to craft a new one, or same as before and in discussion?
The same. So that is also in discussion. So the overall legendary system, overall, people like the items themselves. I think that we want to do probably more and more interesting ways of gathering materials, as well as having some of it based in crafting. Like there's good and bad parts of that. So that's in discussion.
Okay.
You know, tying it into Torghast, it'll probably remain like that, but maybe there'll be outdoor zone stuff as well. We're not sure yet.
Okay, thank you. So with this patch, we'll see even more of the Mo. So a few questions.
Yeah. So how will we go to this new Corsia? Via the Mo or by another means?
So yeah, it is physically attached to the maw. Korthia is literally chained with these giant chains as big as we can make them. So you can just freely walk between the two spaces. Now, as players are used to jumping into the maw in the center of Ouroboros, right? We've all done that many times at this point. And we are going to establish a new hub in Korthia that's kind of this united covenant, forward operating base sort of thing. And in the process of doing that, we're going to establish a connection to Ouroboros so that we can get to Korthia more quickly. So there'll be an easy way to kind of get to that central point that's kind of sits right between the Maw and Korthia, right on the edge, so that you can get to content in both areas pretty easily.
Okay, nice. And will we see the Eye of the Jailer continuing in the Maw, or we know that there is something in the raid, but will the Eye of the Jailer still work in the Maw?
So sure, with the covenants are growing in power and taking the fight to the Maw, like Johnny was saying. You often see this in WoW design, because I think it's a really good loop. Something that has really been difficult or causing you problems, you get a chance later to turn the tables on it and to take the fight to it. And so that is like the fantasy of why we're fighting the Eye. There's actually a fair amount of story involved with that aspect of it as well, which I think Jeremy or Ian was hinting at yesterday in the panel. But all that aside, the core idea of the Maw being the jailer's stronghold and his land is still true, but you have brought powerful allies in there. So the Eye of the Jailer will not be as big of a deal for you. And the increasing difficulty, basically you're going to make more of the areas safer to be in. You're going to be allowed to mount up in those areas, and we're going to unveil more pieces of the Maw where some of the jailer's powerful reserve forces are, so that there's still a good amount of challenge. But yes, you're going to be breaking some of the core loops there as part of the story.
Okay, and will the current zone of the Maw that we have currently still serve a purpose?
Yeah, I think so. You can see over the last years at this point that we have been experimenting with what makes interesting outdoor gameplay loops. We have Nash-Jatar and Mechagon, for example, in the middle of the Battle for Azeroth patches, were both very different and distinct experiments released at the same time to try outdoor gameplay loops based on different fantasies, and some of it being more player driven like Mechagon, and some of it being more event driven like Nash-Jatar, while still doing world quests, etc. So we want to continue those experiments, and callings that we do in Korthia, the new area, and the Maw will be a little bit different this time around based on what we've learned. So it's going to be fresher gameplay. The Maw at release was also a fresher type of gameplay. It's been a long time since we've had outdoor gameplay that remained hard. That wasn't something that as soon as you geared up, you could easily tackle everything. And that was a deliberate choice on our part to try to have that, and have that diminishing return system like the Eye of the Jailer, and make that interesting gameplay, to not allow mounting, just to make people be, really viscerally close to the content again for a while. Those are interesting things, and I think we should continue to try interesting things and keep the outdoor gameplay fresh and varied.
And now a bit of a question about PvO content. Can we expect more cosmetic reward in Mythic Plus? such as the elite set in PvP?
Mythic plus gearing. Do you know the answer to that, Johnny?
So we get a little bit. Probably not everything, but as you know, so in 905 coming, right, we're reintroducing valor points, giving people, you know, a more deterministic way to, in addition, all the existing gearing methods remain, but a way to help, you know, build up your gear over time, right? In case you aren't getting that other drop that you might want, you can help improve the quality of your gear. Obviously, we've heard, you know, both internally and from the community, we've heard tons of other suggestions about cool things that we could add to Mythic Plus as additional things for players to get. And there's a lot of really cool ideas there. And I think there's a lot of things that the team is interested in talking about and finding. And so, you know, nothing to announce right now in terms of additional things in the Mythic Plus space there, but there are a lot of cool ideas out there and a lot of cool things we're looking into and discussing. You know, in the meantime, one cool thing that you can get in Chains of Domination, not specifically from Mythic Plus, but there are these new Covenant sets that I'm sure you saw that are really cool that will work on any armor type. And so, you know, that was a cool thing that felt, hey, in Chains of Domination, since we want to bring all the Covenants together, let's do some Covenant themed armor sets, some additional ones that are, you know, that are different than the ones you might already have seen and earned through your campaign. So, you know, it's always that we always want to look for what feels like the coolest thing we can do right now. And right now we feel like that's some really cool armor that people can go get and get some cool flying mounts along the way that are really amazing. I especially like the Maldraxxus fly. It's you know, gross in a way that only Maldraxxus can achieve. So yeah, we're kind of focusing on that stuff right now, but we totally hear you, and there are lots of great suggestions for sure.
Finally, what are you most excited about in patch 9.1?
That's a great question. That's the hardest question.
Well, I'll go first. I like the idea of the Covenants coming together. I'm looking forward to find some opportunities for interactions between some of these characters. You know, Prince Renethal and the various rebels in Revendreth have never, you know, we haven't seen them interact with anybody like Clea or someone from Bastions. I'm hoping that, you know, some cool story moments like that, but exploring dangerous parts of the Maw with some of the NPCs as your quest givers will be very different than just you and Venari alone there. And so I like the idea of reinvigorating existing fantasies by mixing people's favorite things together. I'm really excited about that aspect of it overall for Korthia and the Maw and the Callings and the Covenants coming there.
Yeah, for me, it's so hard to pick, but some things we haven't really talked about too much. One of them is Tazavesh, the Veiled Market, the new mega dungeon. I think mega dungeons are super fun. I love it. It reminds me of all, you know, both, you know, Karazhan and Mechagon, but it reminds me all the way back to the days of like Blackrock Depths, where you can spend a large chunk of a day really working through and all these, you know, challenging bosses and secrets in there. And I'm excited to learn more about the brokers. It's gonna be really cool that the art team went, you know, I think we can all agree that the art team does an amazing job every time, but they really went above and beyond on this one. They got so excited about the broker culture that they built really more than we had originally asked for. They just kept going and building really cool stuff. It's like, okay, well, yeah, we'll do it. Let's do it. So I think that's going to be really exciting to break into. And then on a similar note, I'm also really excited for a new season of Mythic Plus. I'm really excited to have a new affix in there and see how that kind of shakes things up. And you know, now I can upgrade my gear along the way as I'm running those mythics. And for me, that's what I really like doing. You know, when it's not raid night and we only have a couple people on, you know, whether we have 5 or maybe a smaller group and we can pug a few people, I really like doing some Mythic Pluses to, you know, to play with my friends. So I think those are some of the things I'm looking forward to that we haven't already talked about a whole bunch, but hard to choose.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time and your works. It's an amazing chance for me and Isak and the French communities. Bonne chance.
Thank you. Thank you to you
Yeah,
guys.
Bonne
thanks so
journée, bonne
much.
chance. Merci beaucoup.
Thanks for everything, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye.